wasn't a typical day for most female adolescents in the U.S., Britain, and even in the West African country of Tumay. The mystery behind what mom or dad does and where she or he goes when leaving the house each weekday morning was about to finally end. It was Take Our Daughter to Work Day, and numerous companies and government agencies across the Northland took part in the second annual day-long event.
We've had some good questions and a lot of sharing of daughters back and forth. The parent would take them to another staff person and say, will you show them how to do this? So it's been a real information sharing time, and yes, I'd consider it a success.
Minnesota Power saw the chance to promote this day as a complete learning experience with important on-the-job training. So they invited males as well as females ages 9 to 15. 75 children, 2/3 of whom were female, went through roughly 6 hours of computer training, meeting with executives, and they even received a lunch hour.
It's been a tradition at Minnesota Power that we've allowed our children, not just boys and girls. And for this day, it was easy for us to determine or decide that boys and girls should be allowed on this day and give them opportunities to see what goes on in the workplace.
Like holidays and many bad weather events, this day also represents another chance to miss school, unless your mom or dad is a teacher. In Duluth, John Jetta, News 6.
Well, I mean, that part, I'm not, you know. And these are my closest friends. You know, the way I feel about this whole thing is just, I feel like it's a tragedy, but more or less it's a lesson now that it's definitely been taught, and I've definitely learned a lot from this.
Thank him also, and thank the bank and the community for the support that they've given.
Definitely, and hopefully it will start a new era of importance in the liberal arts and sciences.
I just think it's terribly exciting to have a performing arts center in Solon Springs, and in a beautiful, beautiful spot.
We can like stay for a week, you know?
We really want to improve the health of babies and people that need good prenatal care, moms and babies throughout our whole country. So the money is going for that. Our goal is $35,000. We have every anticipation that we'll hit that goal, so it looks great.
Have any money, and we need to put them to good. All those in favor of the administrative proposal for Lakeside School signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. No.
once in a while. And it's our Purple Heart Award. So Jeannie Johnson.
Ad hoc committee we've had locally to work. That one expands the definition to include cargo. So between the two, San Francisco to Los Angeles, it's the Caribbean, it's not.
We began using less comfortable style ships and concentrating on the educational, environmental aspects of the places we were visiting and less on the glitz and glamour.
Back and forth, right? And then the final excursion down the left coast and into Claire, river system here. Lake Huron, here's Georgian Bay. Okay? That's right. And tip of that peninsula is totally.
Oh yeah?
So I'm trying to go, we have a little spot on it. They both working there? I can't tell how you see them.
Okay.
Drive area. We don't know exactly what we're going to communicate to those folks. It's just phenomenal for a first-year program.
That make it very difficult to incorporate neatly into the.
They appear to be very simple, but pulse wind.
We'll also have some excess revenue in addition to that. So I think that agreement was absolutely paramount to funding this program, and I defy any other city in the state of Wisconsin or maybe anywhere else in the world that will be in as good a state as the city of Superior when it comes to funding their recycling program.
Serial killer John Wayne Gacy tried until the final hours to stop his execution, but last night the U.S. Supreme Court denied an 11th hour appeal.
His final statement was, in essence, that taking his life would not compensate for the loss of the others, and that this was the state murdering him, and that wouldn't serve justice in his opinion.
For 14 years, Gacy lived off the appeals process after being convicted of killing 33 young men. Most of them were found buried under his suburban Chicago home.
This has been 14 years in the making. I'm just glad that finally a little justice was done in this matter.
But there was a problem, a clog in the IV line which delivers the lethal injection. The witness room had to be closed off. The problem was fixed and the curtain reopened. 42 people watched Gacy's final moments.
Sighed when the first drug was going into him, and the rest of it was he was completely motionless, as far as I could see. His victims should have had it so good.
There are good kids around here, and we're showing that today. I mean, volunteering at these places, so I think that's pretty much shows that there are good sides, bad sides, but we care, and so we're here.
Right. Reasons they have to drop those.
Yeah. Right. Well, when we go to war or whatever, we have to have our readiness. We have to be ready for attacks and our responses that will happen. If people get injured, we have to have the responses for first aid and that sort of thing.
Drowning is a whole different ball game. It's a very different ball game because, like Dr. Murphy says, it's a hypoxic injury to the brain. It's a total injury to the brain. And again, I always believe in being too optimistic because that's all I do. I mean, I take care of really sick kids, and I just don't want to give up.
You can turn a TV on any given day, you're going to see violence. You turn your music on, you have violence. You go to movies, you have violence. It's on our streets, and in many times, it's in our homes also. And if that's all you see, it becomes the norm.
Then there was that time when me and my sister was playing jump rope in the street.
Many of today's kids learn about controlling their anger through performances like this one by the Mixed Blood Theater group out of the Twin Cities. We can teach and instruct right from wrong all we want, but in the end, the kids will choose.
It would have been very, very easy to choose a completely different path, and it would be easy to kind of stray off the path and yet keep slightly focused, but it takes a lot of determination for kids to stay completely focused.
Shauna Pelfrey of Superior led a group of teens to City Hall recently, demanding action on a youth center. She envisions herself as a positive role model because of changes she made in her life, changes she says others can make.
There's things we can do bad all around us. I mean, there's so many opportunities to be bad. It takes more willpower to not do those things and to go think of something that's not destructive or something like that than it is just to say, oh, heck, let's go bust some windows or something like that.
Luke Wetterlin was part of the United Way's Youth Day of Caring, an attempt to show that young people are concerned and have a stake in the community's future. Judge Jerry Martin deals almost exclusively with family and child matters. He believes people are hungry for moral guidance to stop their deteriorating quality of life and flight from responsibility.
Hope is the whole thing. What we're seeing more and more are children and adults with no hope, with real despair, fear. Most of the kids I see going through delinquency court are afraid. They don't show it maybe, but they're very much afraid for good reason about their future.
What should a parent do when their child gets in trouble?
Don't be afraid to ask for help. I think one of the precipitators of violence, as long as I've been working with violence in families and young people, is the whole concept of isolation. We've become a very isolated society.
Local groups working with families and young people hope education will turn around the violence that has crept across America. But they know their efforts won't succeed unless the message gets through to the young.
People need to learn about people's cultures. Yeah. They need to be educated.
And that's why they're fighting, because they're scared to learn about other people. They need to, instead of being scared of other people, they need to learn about it.
It's passed by generations. And we can all come together and help this, you know?
Stop the violence.
It's no funny matter. People really need to come together.
And obviously they weren't coming together to
We'll destroy ourselves if we don't come together. For real. Yeah. I love you, guys.
I love you too, dear.
Volunteers, and they may have a need for 50 or 60, but only 10 will show up. You know, some people start doing it from the head.
We've got individuals that have been, especially young ones. They're 10 years old when they start coming, and now they're 17. So you've seen people really mature into from kids to young men or girls to young ladies.
Almost every scientist agrees that our climate is going to warm over the next 50 to 150 years. But the amount of warming and where it will occur is an area of significant disagreement and importance. Vice President Al
what you would see based upon the data, the warming for doubling carbon dioxide would be about 1.3 degrees Celsius. The temperature change for the last 100 years is thought to be, between 0.35 and 0.55 degrees. That means that, over the next 100, 150 years, you'd see a warming, additional warming of probably a little bit less than a degree. That's not, in my mind, I don't think in anybody's mind, sufficient to remake the world's way of life.
Ecologists are of a different opinion.
So it's not a matter of how extreme it is, but how the vegetation will respond to it. And when you're on the edge of the range of a lot of species, small differences in climate that we may not even notice, the trees will notice it.
There are those who argue that what's decided in the halls of science doesn't really matter. The real battle that will affect you and me on global warming is going to take place in Congress and in the state legislature. Opponents of drastic warming point to the period of time. They believe that taking potentially expensive steps based on this data just isn't sensible. One proposal currently being examined by the Minnesota Public Utility Commission would factor in a cost for global warming. Utility companies say that this has the potential to significantly increase the cost of new power generation. That increase could cause dramatic rises in power bills that would hit businesses and individuals alike. For industries that rely heavily on electricity, there are fears that this would price them out of global competition. Environmentalists contend that this is just the price we're going to have to pay.
It's not economic. It can't be economic because economic is just of the short term. And if you think that we as civilized people are still going to act in a civilized way 200 years from now, you got to start thinking about how you're going to shoulder that responsibility.
Many researchers believe that we must begin planning now while it's still early.
But if we stick our heads in the sand and do nothing, it's going to happen and we're going to be surprised, and then it'll be difficult. But I think just an honest facing of the problem is what is needed here by all of us.
More and more candidates for public office are realizing that environmental concerns are affecting voting patterns. As these become linked with economic issues, expect to see the public debate on global warming heat up again. George Kessler, News 6.
Two-year-old Corey Lazzaretti goes non-stop, but a simple bottle of light table salt could have stopped him for good.
Yeah, I saw him going like this, but I thought maybe it was a cup of juice, and he started spitting it out. That's when I realized it was light salt.
Hennepin Poison Center.
Corey's mother called the Poison Center. They say they regularly get calls of children eating salt or light salt. The usual recommendation, go to the hospital.
As little as, say, a tablespoonful in a 2-year-old, it would be at least potentially dangerous.
How dangerous? It could be nausea, headache, or more.
Eventually, a gradual loss of consciousness, convulsions can eventually occur.
And could you die from this?
Yes, you can, and deaths have occurred primarily in children.
Morton officials tell us they are in compliance with FDA regulations, which do not require warning labels on salt. They also say there are plenty of other food products that are potentially dangerous. That's true. There's at least one case of a child dying after drinking an entire bottle of soy sauce. Corey's mom believes warning labels are imperative. The salt Corey ate left his heart rate and potassium levels dangerously high.
It was very dangerous and very scary.
You're a good mower, aren't you? After 8 hours in the emergency room, Corey returned to normal. Experts say other children may not be as lucky. Melissa Young, KARE 11 News.
Many will take to the highway this Memorial Day in the hopes of enjoying a long weekend out of town, but aggressive drivers beware. Your driving manners could land you some hefty traffic fines and, more importantly, could be fatal.
But by being defensive, you'll be willing to give up the right-of-way. If you're aggressive, you're not going to be willing, first of all, to give up the right-of-way, which is a big conflict, especially in city driving, where most of the collisions that we have are at intersections, and aggressive drivers at intersections are not going to be willing to give anything up. Same.
More than 480 drivers and passengers died on Minnesota roadways during 1992. 76% of those fatalities were not wearing their seatbelts.
Usually, if you're driving like they will be this weekend, fairly long distances, you'll throw the vehicle in cruise control, you'll lean back and relax. Listen to music, talk, enjoy yourself, and driving is no time to be relaxing whatsoever. 80% of all fatalities happen at less than 40 miles an hour, so it's just as important to have them on in the city situation. The vehicle in front of us, that young lady doesn't have a seatbelt on. Very evident. It's so easy to spot those things as you go on through. Now, as we drive
According to Minnesota law, a motorist cannot be pulled over for not wearing their seatbelt. But if a driver were to improperly change lanes and be stopped because of that infraction, the seatbelt violation could then be included as part of the fines. Fines that could become quite expensive. Here's how. The cost of an illegal lane change is $50, but another $41.75 can be added for not wearing your seatbelt. The grand total, $91.75. Slowing down and using one of these will help keep from any unintentional traffic expenses. But more importantly, will help ensure a safe and successful weekend. In Duluth, John Jetta, News 6.
They can stay in well-lit areas. They can travel in groups, have some friends with you. Certainly if you're drinking, you should have a sober person perhaps with you, so they know that if you're in some sort of danger that they can help you out. Even though that, for the most part, there aren't that many muggings in Duluth, so it's a relatively safe city to begin with. So it's just use some common sense. Stay in well-traveled areas, and if you're drinking, don't show a lot of.
This is a historic tradition our country started in 1868, the placing of flowers on the graves of Union and Confederate soldiers. Today we call it Memorial Day, a day of remembrance for those who died while serving in the military. Over 100 Northlanders attended services held at Soldiers Monument at Oneota Cemetery. Lieutenant Colonel George Zeck gave the memorial address.
The memories, the reflections, for some, the tears, for others still, the questioning and searching for understanding.
Amazing grace shall then prevail.
George Williams, Edward Zamalius.
Generally speaking, the world is at peace, and the national trend is to forget the importance of May 30th. In New York, the 73rd Annual Memorial Day Parade canceled due to lack of interest. But in the Northland, the holiday significance is strongly felt.
Well, it seems that the further away we are removed from the last war, the more people seem to forget.
My heart aches for these people, because we do have a beautiful country and we have to stick together.
Not everyone chose to attend today's formal ceremonies. Many held their own private rituals on this, the 126th observance of Memorial Day. In Duluth, Chip Wallace, News 6.
Arnie Carlson,
The self-proclaimed manager of this state has not invested in its people, in its communities, or its infrastructure. And because of this negligence, we're beginning to see cracks in the state's foundation. Low-paying jobs, an aging population, Walmart's replacing family businesses, all have created a quiet desperation out here.
I've been serving here for these 10 years in what I'd call kind of a time of transition. It's really been a wonderful transition. Our church is kind of like a big old ship that turns slowly, and gradually and slowly it's turning and being filled with new younger people and young leadership, and I'm excited about the future for our church.
There are 6 communities that have submitted proposals that are being sifted through and evaluated by the Iron Range Resources Board and by Northwest Airlines, and I expect that decision to be made fairly soon. It'll be in the next several days.
So it may sound strange to say, but on that day I was not afraid. But thereafter, every time we were in combat, I was afraid. But on that first day, I can't explain it, but I wasn't.
Gunman. So then first thing I went for is to see where other troopers were. But the only way you could know where they were because you could see the chute, in other words. But a lot of them were drowned, and we pulled 2 out. I pulled 2 of them out of the river, drowned. They went right to the bottom. We went to a town called Amferville. We hit Amferville and we cleaned that town out, and there's where we had a lot of casualties, house to house fighting, and no, there was no. You didn't know if the Frenchmen and the kids were in that house, or if you knew that just the Germans were in there, you'd been all right. You could have thrown grenades in there, but we had to go, and there was a lot of kids in there, but we got them out of there. And then we were just like a bunch of bandits. We had a second lieutenant. He blew his arm off, and his 3 fingers on his hand. And I understand that he lived, so we never know what happened to him, and they try to find him, but so far no luck, but he got smashed up. His name was Smith. And there are a lot of casualties. War has no rules. They say there's rules, but there ain't.
At that time, I was a second lieutenant in the 101st Airborne Division and landed on Utah Beach at 6:30 a.m. There wasn't a lot of opposition right away, but of course, when we got inland, then we had to fight our way in. Even though I was in an airborne division, our battalion went in by sea, and we were to report to the place where there was the greatest opposition. So we didn't have a mission at that time, but it was assigned once we got on shore. We attacked in and spent the night about half a mile in from Utah Beach, and the next morning jumped off on the attack, and I was directing some artillery fire. It was about noon, directing artillery fire. I was told I had 5 105 millimeter howitzers to support the advance. And I saw some Germans about a quarter of a mile away around a farmhouse. And while directing that fire, a German shot me from a hedgerow using a Schmeiser pistol, much as the same as on that German uniform over there. In fact, it's exactly the type of a gun. And I was shot through the right arm, and the bullet passed through my right arm between the two bones in the forearm, between the ulna and the radius, and exited on the backside, and had a grazing wound above the elbow. And of course, I had to go to the rear, then back to the battalion aid station. That afternoon, I went out to the Utah Beach again, and that evening went out to a hospital ship, and then back to Southampton on the southern coast of England, and then to a hospital in Oxford, England, and spent 70 days there, recuperating from the wounds that I received in Normandy. Rejoined the outfit again for the airborne operation up in Holland, flew into Holland, and that's been talked about. That was Operation Market Garden, and Cornelius Ryan has written about it, A Bridge Too Far. The goal was to get up to the bridge at Arnhem, and the British airborne were almost annihilated up at Arnhem. I was wounded on a bridge going up towards there, but not evacuated to a hospital. They put a Band-Aid on and some sulfanilamide powder, and I went back to service again. After Holland, of course, the 101st Airborne Division went up to Bastogne in December. We were surrounded for 7 days up at Bastogne. The perimeter of that defense was about 16 miles, which makes it a little over 5 miles in diameter. But on the 26th of December, the armored divisions came through, and we were no longer surrounded. I was wounded again for the third time, trying to get up to make contact with the 82nd Airborne Division, and that time I had to spend time at a hospital at Metz, M-E-T-Z, which was fought over during World War I and again in World War II. I spent 30 days there and rejoined my outfit again and ended up the war at Berchtesgaden on the 8th of May of 1945. It has a folding stock on it. We call it coat hanger stock, and the officers carried these. We did not carry the 45 millimeter or 45 caliber handgun. The men in the company carried the regular M1 rifle, In addition, we had light machine guns and 60-millimeter mortars and BARs, or Browning automatic rifles. Of course, all of us carried hand grenades that were clipped wherever we had a place to clip them. The hand grenades had a delay of about 6 seconds from the time you threw them. The handle would fly off, and everyone was aware of that they might be thrown back within the 6 seconds. So all the soldiers would have the hand grenade in their hand. They'd pull the pin and let the handle fly off and count 1, 2, 3, and throw it. And by the time it got to their destination, then they would explode, so they had no chance to throw them back.
KQDS, Mike Keller in the midday. It is a 2 for Tuesday and a little motivation for the guys and gals working out, shaping up for the summertime. Here's Queen.
Oh, you gonna take me home tonight. You hear it on the radio, you see it in the video stores, and it's even in the comic strips. What is it? The Northland's latest obsession, losing the pounds we put on over the winter.
Yes, you can't get outside when it's 40 below zero.
Paula Sullivan is taking action to shed the pounds she put on. She's working hard to get ready for the summer.
I just want to get back on the road to being thinner and more healthy.
I think everybody's concerned with looking better than they are.
Even though today's temps didn't skyrocket, the heat is on. Summer swimwear sales are going on throughout the region.
All of our swimwear is on sale right now, at least 20% off, all the way up to 40% off.
So now's the time.
Now's the time.
So that brings us back to the gym, where the main objective is to lose the weight. But doing it safely, it's just as important.
Primarily, the most important thing to do is to check with your doctor before you start. It's very important that you make sure that physically you're okay to get started in any exercise program.
Get on your bikes, ride! Whether it's the bicycle, Stairmaster, or aerobics, the push is on to drop the pounds. In Duluth, Chip Wallace, News 6.
Two more kids to go over there.
It wasn't your typical day for students in District 709. For some, it meant classes. For others, it meant activities. I guess you can say it was the last day of school, and for many parents, it represents the beginning of the annual headache, better known as summer break.
I don't think every kid gets in trouble in the summer, but all of them need to be kept busy and have some alternative activities. And as a mother of an 8-year-old boy myself, I think that there are a number of things for kids to do who live in Duluth this summer.
Younger children can take part in numerous activities both outside and in. Duluth Parks and Recreation and the Duluth Public Library are just a few of the many area organizations who have scheduled summer events. Information for these events is nothing more than a simple phone call away. To some older youth, money is the most important. So how about a job?
Oh, it's an excellent opportunity for kids. It's a good way for them to keep busy and to get experience in the job field. They get the experience of going and applying for the jobs and interviewing and actually getting their first job and first work experience. And it really teaches them responsibility.
In the end, parents will find a way to cope with the youth of summer. They always do. Maybe there's a silver lining. Summer activities, whether indoor or outdoor, could help teach your child responsibility. At the very least, could help keep them busy. In Duluth, John Jetta, News 6. Duluth attorney Bill Summerness is representing Northland women in a $4.3 billion lawsuit leveled against the nation's largest producer of silicone breast implants. If the case goes through, it'll be the single largest product liability suit in United States history. It's also a very unique case, one that many feel benefits both the victims and those companies that are under fire.
In this case, we have a number of companies with huge assets. And the decision was instead of having a race to the courthouse, so that some women got millions of dollars and then the company went bankrupt. This is being approached that we want all of the companies to succeed and to be solvent.
One company involved is 3M. They threw $325 million into the fund. A lot of money, but not enough to put them out of business. As for the victims, a payment schedule has been set up using age and how many of 18 different symptoms, as verified through medical records, the plaintiff exhibits. Settlements range from $140,000 to $1.4 million. 25% of the fund will be left untouched for future claims. For those women with implants who haven't had complications, getting registered is recommended.
Women who presently don't have problems, or women who don't know the length and breadth of their problems, will still have a source of funding to be able to go back to. But you've got to get registered.
Some women are opting to forego the class action suit to pursue their own litigation. Those women who decide to go it alone must make that decision by June 17th. In Duluth, Ted Rowlands, News 6.
Businesses and citizens are losing money and paying more to travel back and forth as a result of the bridge being closed. For instance, truck drivers who are paid by the load are losing as much as $75 a day, and that can be documented because they lose one trip a day between here and the North Shore with the product that they haul as a result of the extra mileage.
We've got vehicles ranging from a 1972 Ford van up to 1992 Chevy Caprices. So we've got a 20-year span of vehicles. We've got cars, vans, pickups, big dump trucks, little dump trucks, golf carts, backhoes, a lot of miscellaneous stuff.
Oh, you can do it afterwards? I just talk to you. All right, well, that's good.
Why don't you go ahead and tell me, do you feel...
It's a strong record of accomplishment.
I want them to appreciate the fact that they do have an obligation to be representative of the broad will of Minnesotans. And as you indicate, the polls show that we have that support.
People want change. Is this a national trend? I say yeah, it is.
We're hoping to get a little bit of video of you.
Well, what it comes from, you know, this early in the year, the polls favor the incumbent. This early in the year, the polls are mostly name ID, and that's all it is. But as people are finding out what we stand for, the gap is closing very, very quickly.
Next door. I rang the doorbell.
for the most part, the services and the community has been very responsive to the needs that have arisen.
Yeah.
After giving the gay community that commendation, my car was vandalized. I received dozens of phone calls from people that were really quite crude, offensive, and even profane on the phone. And then I was a victim. I was a victim for saying thank you to some people that helped out some kids. And
What?
Good group. Bunch of guys.
A lot of people. Oops, I guess I better get.
The paints look to be probably heavy metal based, a lead based paint. So yeah, there's toxic effects to the fish and to anyone that might come in contact with the material.
Did any get into the river?
There was a small.
It has to do with this stuff. No, no. That porcupines were dead before this stuff came in. Okay. That's the main thing you want. Are you the reporter and cameraman both? Yeah, I think we both are. What do you want?
Until the company doing the cleanup can separate those out and give us an accurate measurement, we really won't know how much has been lost.
Have shown that locally the healthcare industry is supplying somewhere in the neighborhood of about 8,000 direct jobs and possibly as many as 12,000 to maybe 13,000 direct and indirect jobs for the local economy.
If these were all located directly within the city of Duluth, which they are not, but if they were,
report agrees that sexual harassment appears to have happened. It blames things like inadequate staffing, poor training, and a bad physical layout that allows unsupervised mixing of men and women inmates. Our report charges that drugs and alcohol were being smuggled into the facility. The Department of Corrections blames bad procedures like poorly done inmate searches and badly trained guards. Our report detailed charges of inmates having sex inside the facility. The Department of Corrections says the layout of the facility contributes to such relationships. We also reported a sexual assault that Duluth police investigated on August 29, 1993. The Department of Corrections says this report has been turned over to Duluth authorities and is still under investigation. Our report also detailed repeated inmate escapes. The Department of Corrections points out that this is a minimum security facility, but suggests a better staff schedule and more frequent bed checks, particularly at night, are needed. They also say guards should no longer be used as janitors. And there was something else which we didn't report that the Department of Corrections investigation found. The report indicates that petty cash funds have been found missing over an extended period of time. The Department of Corrections says internal financial controls and staff accountability do not meet state regulations. Duluth Police Chief Scott Lyons has just received the report.
There are suggestions made to the board, to the Bethel Society Board, and to its director that we definitely think should be looked into and corrected, and some training issues and security issues and things like that.
I believe that there's a certain number of things that the Sheriff's Department budget is really the important, the bottom line. The Sheriff's Department's budget is out of control. Taxpayers expect total control and management of the budget. As sheriff, I will make sure they get it.
And so over time, the partnerships between Wisconsin and Minnesota will grow stronger. We will solidify that relationship. And this bridge is just another example of what that partnership is all about. It's an extraordinary event. It's a great accomplishment.
In 1961, when this bridge was first built, it cost $21 million. And we expected that the people at that time expected about 14,000 travelers a day to go over it. When it was closed a little over a year ago, or less than a year ago, it was 28,000, and to refurbish the bridge, today's dollars, it costs $35 million. And what a partnership. Partnership from the federal government who come in and helped us with the dollars, partnership from the
I'm sure that if we all work together, this state, this community, that we'll see people back to work at NSPC this year.
Oh, we're hoping we're going to be really busy. Everybody tells us we're going to be really busy. We don't know for sure, you know, if we're going to be, how busy we'll be, but
you're counting on it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think it will be. It'll be, business in the summertime is very busy, and so it'll be nice to have it reopened and more convenient for everybody to get here.
This. Repeat there.
Tell me you're gonna stop now.